Today's episode is a tale of utopia gone awry. And as all utopias seem to so often do, this one spiraled out of control with overcrowding, population collapse, and increasingly bizarre, deviant behavior. What's going on, everyone? And welcome to The Name is Science. We're your hosts, Chris Howard,
Josh Jacobs,
and Eddie Fernandez.
Today's episode is a tale of utopia gone awry. And as all utopias seem to so often do, this one spiraled out of control with overcrowding, population collapse, and increasingly bizarre, deviant behavior. But what makes this story so interesting is its subjects, because this story is of mice, not men, and it was all done in the name of science.
Picture it, the year was 1968. The nation was at war in Vietnam. Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and so is Senator Robert F. Kennedy. The Intel Corporation is created, and so is Redwood National Park. But in Maryland, at the National Institute of Health, a man by the name of John Calhoun was putting the finishing touches on his 25th iteration of what would eventually become known as Mouse Heaven, a 4.5-foot cube with everything a mouse could want. Unlimited food and water, perfect temperature, all the paper the little mousy hearts could ever desire to build cozy nests, and 256 apartments, which I hope had mini TVs and couches for the mice to watch the premiere season of 60 Minutes. That's right, 60 Minutes premiered in 1968. Hello, I'm Mouse Wallace, and I'm Harry Ratzner, and this is 60 Minutes. Okay, so maybe no TVs on couches, but by mouse standards, this was mouse heaven. And in fact, that's exactly what it was called. And Calhoun screened every mouse to ensure it was disease and predator free.
So I think it's possible that we might be projecting our ideas of an ideal heaven upon these mice based on our desires for basic human comfort, like a home in 2023 where a 2-1 in the very neighborhoods is $500,000. Honestly, I think heaven to a mouse is just a good piece of cheese. I sourced this data based on my personal research, where I've discovered that if there's a piece of cheese on any kind of mousetrap, the mouse will go to the trap. They're not dumb. They know what that is. They know it's a trap. They know they're going to die. But they also know life sucks and cheese is wonderful. And so they go to the cheese, and as they embrace the icy cold grip of death, they go there with a great taste in their mouth.
I'll eat a giant chunk of Manchenko cheese, and I will go to my death doing it. That's how good it is. So I'm all about the cheese. I get it with the mice.
I agree. For me, it's Parmesan Reggiano. Man, I would sprinkle that on myself as I burn to death. It's so
good. Chris?
Last night, I just gorged on some smoked Gouda cheese.
Oh, yeah.
With bacon flakes in it.
Oh, Chris, that's so Gouda.
So, who was John Calhoun, and why the hell did he want to start a MouseTopia?
White savior with a mouse complex. That's who he was.
For any Calhoun relatives out there wanting to take legal action against Eddie for his views on your relative, please email Eddie's going to get sued at poor.poor. But back to the story.
For the life the way you're represented, I guarantee it.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Yeah, we're getting sued. So Calhoun grew up in Tennessee and was an avid birder. Later, he would go on to take his love of animals and nature and earn his PhD in zoology, where in 1946, he joined the Rodent Ecology Project in Baltimore. That sounds crazy. The Rodent Ecology Project in Baltimore.
Making sure every rat gets a pizza.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now, while this sounds uplifting, the project was created to find the best way to eliminate the rodent pests out of major metropolitan areas. But the project had minimal success because no one could figure out what specific needs or what specific things to target. So Calhoun decided he was going to learn everything he could about rodents by creating a utopia of sorts that would allow him to study their behavior and lifestyle. So he set up the first utopia behind his house using Norway rats.
So Chris knows I lived in northern New Jersey. I was in Manhattan all the time. My father would take me in to go see whatever crazy thing that was going on at the time, or basketball games, you name it. And we would inevitably have to go on the subway. And I distinctly remember in the early 80s that we were walking on the subway, and all of a sudden I see a rat the size of a bulldog with zero to give just coming towards me. And it was absolutely terrifying, and I will never forget it. And then years later, when we were living in Atlanta and we moved into this new house, had been empty for about a year, didn't understand why it was so cheap until realizing why in a minute, that there were rats inside the walls at night, scurrying around. I could hear it. And my wife, who at the time had an ear problem, she couldn't hear as well, and she thought I was absolutely bonkers. She did not know what was going on. She just swore I was crazy. And then, out of nowhere, I would put my ear up to the wall and you just hear them creeping around all night. I just kept imagining these rats would be die-harding it all night in the air ducts of my house. Probably had their little rat cigarette in their tank top. Come out to Atlanta, we'll get together, have a few laughs. It was just crazy.
Do you think they also took off their shoes and socks and squeezed the carpet with their toes?
By the way, I've done that. It is totally relaxing. So good for you, Bruce Willis. And I'm sorry, Bruce Willis. And so we got this famous rat removal guy. He was like the rat king of Atlanta. And he found this massive hole in our garage closet where the rats were getting in. And he had this Jack Russell Terrier, the Fraser dog. And it supposedly was made for that. Like, it would flush rats out. And so then he put all these desiccation traps in the hole, and it would literally absorb their juices when they died. So they would just be bones and fur and there would be no smell. And then years later, we were remodeling the downstairs TV room, and the guy opened up the wall and pulled out a 3.5-foot Norwegian rat from nose to tail, like the rodents of unusual size from The Princess Bride. Which, by the way, fantastic movie. Love Andre the Giant. Hello, pretty lady. And Chris, you lived in the bayou, so I'm sure you have your rat stories. Eddie, you were in Miami, so I'm sure rats everywhere as well.
Not the same kind.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, I did not live in the bayou. Louisiana is just not all swamps in bayous. I lived in the city. But I think what's more alarming is the fact that I've been to your house and did not know about this rat infestation.
Going back to the bayou thing, I've always thought of Louisiana as kind of like Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet from Star Wars. It's like a jungle planet with lots of water, and then everybody builds their like huts on stilts to stay above the water. Yeah,
you guys have got to get out more. That's not all of Louisiana. We do have nutria rats, so I'll give you that. So Calhoun got into learning as much as he could about rodent behavior that he began to create more and more intricate and elaborate rodent cities in completely controlled environments. And he did so because he thought that by studying these mice and rats in these little metropolises he had built, that maybe he could learn more about how to build better cities for people. Now, his most famous Utopia 25, which started in 1968, every 55 days the population would double. That's a lot of mouse love. That's just ridiculous. But at the height of it, there were 2,200 mice. But unlike in the wild, where a certain percentage of baby mice would get eaten by predators, which is a natural population control, there were no such things in Utopia 25, which meant there were a lot of juveniles.
So, like most animal hierarchies, there are alphas. The most common one people think of are wolves and dogs. And you have to fight the other dudes off to actually establish that you are the actual alpha. I, however, have no understanding of that at all. I would probably classify myself as a Zeta, maybe, something along those lines. I can promise that when the apocalypse comes, that I will either be instantly killed off or used as food, scurry off after one lame attempt at overtaking the alpha, and live out my days roaming the wilds and talking to myself. And in fact, when the alphas would fight the other mice and win, in the wild, those mice would just do that. They would just run off to some empty log and start over or die of their wounds.
Josh, just for the record, I'd let you be a part of my alpha harem any day with that perfectly coiffed beard you have.
You can't handle me.
Josh, I can.
Agree to disagree.
I just clenched my teeth so hard I think I chipped one of them.
In Utopia 25, there was nowhere to go when you challenged the alpha, and these poor saps were dubbed dropouts by Calhoun. And because there were so many juveniles and so many dropouts, these mouse losers of sorts would just move to the center of the cube because the alphas had taken the apartments, and I would hope penthouses in MouseTopia.
And what happens when you have a ton of mice that have been beaten, scarred, bruised, and had their little mousy egos destroyed? Well, they would just get into these huge brawls like the WWF Royal Rumbles in the 80s, where 20 dudes would get in the ring and just duke it out till there was only one winner. But unlike the WWF, as far as we know, some of these mice would even resort to cannibalism. But the alpha males, while seemingly living the life, were not faring very well either. Each alpha would have to defend their harem from other alphas. So whereas in nature, there's generally one alpha per group and location, there were at least 12 or so duking it out in Utopia 25. And ultimately, the loser would just give up, leaving their homes, broods vulnerable to other alphas.
And of course, this is where it got real. Mothers would defend their young when attacked by other alphas or just rogue dudes looking to make a name for themselves on the mean streets of MouseTopia. Moms who were tired and stressed from having sex with these jerks all day while also having to stay home and take care of 25 babies. I made my butthole pucker. Or kicking kids out of the house early. You're 3 years old, go get a job, punk. And some would even beat their kids because you know what? There's no better way to learn than the belt buckle end.
Or can I just do a throwback to episode 1 with corporeal punishment, because that seems about right. I'm sorry, extra corporeal punishment.
Oh God, that was disgusting. Some would leave their kids altogether and go to their female friend's house for comfort, whatever that means. Leaving the babies to fend for themselves and more than likely die or possibly grow up into some maladjusted serial killer mouse.
I mean, the Dexter of mice, I'm sure, was born there somewhere. You would think that that's as horrible as it gets, but even more crazy behavior began to emerge as time went on. Mice who had been raised in abusive situations or kicked out of the house or abandoned failed to develop healthy social bonds in and through adulthood. This basically sounds like the breeding ground for mouse serial killers.
See, told you. Now, I want to just take a moment here to point out that in the script, Josh wrote serial as in consisting of or arranged in a series, rank, or row.
Hey, listen, man, I will kill me some Frosted Flakes cereal.
Listen.
Agreed.
Okay.
Dude, I could kill some Captain Crunch right now, even like a mousetrap, even if it cuts up the roof of my mouth.
So this is how I know who Chris, you and I are. Chris would kill some Frosted Flakes. You would kill some Captain Crunch. I would kill some Grape Nuts.
Oh
Grape
my God.
Jesus. You just say some Special K while you're at it.
Oh my God. Hey guys, can I have some unfrosted cardboard chunks?
Yes, they are so good.
You're such a hippie, dude.
Oh my God.
I'm actually not a hippie. I'm really just a grandpa at this point.
I mean, I'm really liberal, but like I just saw a leftist with that cereal declaration.
Like just some unfrosted wheat then.
I feel like calling that cereal is fake news.
I don't even know if they make it anymore, actually. I've had Grape Nuts in a million years.
Grape Nuts.
Wait, I got one last question before I get off this tangent. So the California raisins, if they teabagged you, would they be getting you with their grape nuts?
Do their nuts taste like grapes?
We're starting early, folks. Okay. Whew. Eddie always makes me laugh. Females who had dealt with abusive males would isolate themselves in whatever empty areas were available. Males who were the juveniles or losers of fights that had survived the center cube brawls would end up grooming themselves all day. Calhoun would call these the beautiful ones, but these guys strangely had no interest in females or sex. And so with little interest in sex, lower birth rates, and babies unable to raise themselves, the population of Utopia 25 crashed. And by the end of almost 2 years of the experiment, babies barely survived a few days, then births stopped completely, and soon the entire population died.
I wonder if Prince's song "The Beautiful Ones" was inspired by Calhoun.
Could be. You're going to find out in a minute. There are a lot of things inspired by this project in entertainment and music and some other things. So I wonder.
Awesome. So word soon got out about the experiment and all the world was talking about it. Some scientists felt like it was foretelling of the end of humanity as related to the excessive rise in world population. Movies and books started being created, such as Soylent Green with Charlton Heston. In 2022, Earth is overpopulated and totally polluted. The natural resources have been exhausted, and the nourishment of the population is provided by Soylent Industries, a company that makes food consisting of plankton from the oceans. In New York City, when Soylent's member of the board, William R. Simonson, is murdered, Detective Thorne is assigned to investigate the case. Thorne soon discovers the bizarre, disturbing secret of the ingredient used to manufacture Soylent Green. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the movie that's been out for 54 years, Soylent Green is people.
Hold on, wait. Can you give me your best Charlton Heston delivery of that line?
I don't know if I can do that. All I remember from Charlton Heston is from
Damn dirty apes, you blew it up.
hands.
Dude, Josh has got some guns on him. You sure you would be a Zeta male?
And it wasn't just one movie or book that was inspired by this, but several that Calhoun built. The one that stands out to me was the book Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. Yes, that's right, The Secret of Nim, 1982 Don Bluth movie, was taken directly from Calhoun's later Utopia experiment, where he encouraged creative behavior by keeping the mice physically and mentally nourished. I just remember the oldest rat, the Nicodemus, and he talked like Voldemort, and it scared the out of me. I remember him telling this story to one of the mice about how they became who they were, and I'm not so nerdy that I know this by heart, people, but this will give you a better understanding of how creepy that movie was. He starts and he's talking and he's like, "In the beginning, we were ordinary street rats, stealing our daily bread and living off the efforts of man's work. We were captured, put in cages, and sent to a place called Nim. There were many animals there in cages. They were put through the most unspeakable tortures to satisfy some scientific curiosity. Often at night I would hear them crying out in anguish. 20 rats and 11 mice were given injections. Our world began changing. Then one night I looked up the words under the cage door and understood them. We had become intelligent. We could read. Avada Kedavra!
Yeah, Nicodemus almost sounds like a nicotine gum product. To get you
I gotta choose some
smoking.
Nicodemus. I am jonesing right now.
Like if I had some creepy old talking to me like that about the dangers of smoking, I probably wouldn't ever consider it.
Eddie, cigarettes. They're filled with toxic chemicals that get into your
Weed.
bloodstream. P.S. everyone, Don Bluth also did All Dogs Go to Heaven, which, if you've ever watched, is scary as and if you watch the scenes where there are some dogs, apparently, they just go to hell. So the total miscommunication or false advertising. But he also gave us two of the coolest that they ever made, Space Ace and Dragon Slayer, which, by the way, crazy, Ryan Reynolds is doing a live action Dragon Slayer, and he said it's going to be the most crazy movie you've ever seen. So my assumption is they're going to give options somehow for you to like choose your own adventure within the movie, which would be super cool. So thank you, Don Bluth, for your weird and amazing mind.
I mean, I can tell you, dogs going to hell, it's not that crazy to me after 10 years with the dog I have now. I can't imagine him going anywhere else. But Don Bluth also provided significant mental trauma to my childhood too. Remember when Littlefoot's mom died in The Land Before Time? I do.
Yeah.
Go yourself, Don Bluth.
Yeah, that messed me up also. But it was the fact that so many people in multiple industries were taking Calhoun's work so seriously on a human scale that it made his experiments so fascinating. Some people have gone so far as to compare Calhoun's mouse model with social inequality, like how a few aggressive alpha males are hoarding precious resources, aka the 1%ers.
Look, mice and humans aren't that genetically different. It's why mice are so commonly used for medical research. Our genes are very similar. I mean, you can grow a human ear on a mouse's back. So it really doesn't come as much of a surprise that this kind of thing would exist as a microcosm, MouseTopia, and a macrocosm. Look outside your window. The difference is that mice haven't developed the ability to self-reflect or think in abstract terms the way some of us do. And yes, I said some of us intentionally. So while the results of MouseTopia can't necessarily be seen as a 1-1 comparison, it should absolutely spark a little concern given the similarities between the experiment and what we see every day. It seems like the alpha male archetype is the problem, and while I don't know the solution, I'll f up anyone who questions it.
All right, folks, that's it for this episode of In the Name of Science. It means a hell of a lot to us that you choose to spend your valuable time with us, and we have tons more creepy and off-the-rail discoveries to talk about. So if you like this episode, or even if you don't like Eddie but still like Josh and myself, please like, subscribe, and share. And remember, if it ain't weird, it ain't science.
Science!